So we're ready to get started learning how to create lines and shapes. And in this video, we're going to focus on just doing straight lines. We're not going to work on the curves. It's important to just get comfortable with the tool and tracing. And that's basically what we're doing, is tracing. So if I click on the artwork tool, which is right here or right here, if I click on it, notice that I have crosshairs that attached to my cursor. That is something I recommend that you do because it just makes helping to line things up much easier. I use these when I'm digitizing, so if I go in this corner, I'm lining it up to this line right here and to this line right here. So by having the crosshairs, it makes it easier to do that. And if you click on the artwork tool and you don't see those, or if you want to just make sure that you have this option selected before you get started, it's very easy to do. All you need to do is go to Program Preferences, which you can click on this little cogwheel here or right here in the floating toolbar. And when you click on it, go to the View tab. And when you select the View tab, there'll be a checkbox right here for Show Crosshair in Input Mode. Make sure that that is selected and then press OK. And that's what's going to display those little crosshairs. So as we get going with the line tool, it is very simple to use, and what we're doing is we're just left mouse clicking and plotting points to trace around this shape. Now when you're working with nothing but a line, if I click this first point, and you can start anywhere. I should have said that. You can start anywhere in the design. It doesn't matter. For some reason, I want to start right here, so that's where I'm going to put it. But it really doesn't matter where you start tracing as long as you're getting back to the beginning, is if it's going to be creating a shape like this. So I'm going to left click here. And when you're creating lines, you want to make the fewest points or nodes as possible. And so I don't need to click anywhere along here because it's a straight line. I just go to where I have to, where the intersection is, if you want to call it that, to where I have to change direction. So I'm just going to click right here, and I'm just going to do that going around. I'm trying to line up my crosshairs with the adjoining lines here, and I'm just going around and very easily plotting these points here. And it's not difficult to trace. You just need to practice and get used to locating the area where you need to click. And here's something when I get to this point that I like to point out. I have a tendency to just come right over and click this close shape so that it will close that. You can go ahead and click right over the top of it, but if you don't get right over the top of it, it remains kind of separated. It doesn't close it fully, and closing it is pretty important to do. And so I recommend getting in the habit of clicking close shape. And when I click that icon, it's going to close it. So let me go ahead and select it. You can see it's down here. I need to change that color here, and I need to make sure I do that moving forward as well. But you can see that I outlined or traced my first shape. Very easy to do. It's something that is not difficult, but it just takes a little bit of practice, and it's trying to get to where you don't put excess points in. Now, is there a better way to create this shape? Yes, there is. So I know that might be confusing, but what I'm going to do now is click on the artwork tool. I'm going to make sure I have this color selected down here again. I just want a darker color. So whenever you're working with straight lines, and when we're talking about straight lines though, we're also talking about horizontal, perfectly horizontal and perfectly vertical, there is something that we can do. I'm going to click on this first point, and when I get to the next one, I'm going to hold down Shift. And by holding down Shift, it's going to create a perfectly straight line. And that's very helpful when you're doing something like this. And watch what happens. So if I put my cursor right here, you can see I'm above that line. I hold down Shift and I click. Notice that it put the point right horizontal with the previous one. So now if I come up here and I hold down shift and click, it's going to make a perfectly straight line. Shift and click. I'm just holding down shift the entire time. And what this is going to do is help me make a much cleaner plus symbol, if you want to call it that. And it's just a little tip that really helps make things a lot easier and really clean. As you can see, it's a very clean shape. It doesn't have any squiggly lines in it really. It's very handy, and that's a great way to do it. So in this design, I'm going to zoom out here. You can see I have a bunch of symbols here, and these are what I recommend that you practice with. So this is very easy to create yourself. I use nothing more than custom shapes up here in the top right. When you click on it, I just was in this area. I just scrolled down, and you'll notice the ones that I'm using are all right here. So I have this shape 5 right here, but I have this little plus symbol, this symbol, I have this one right here, this one right here, again that one right there. All you need to do is bring them in one at a time, and to bring it in, it's very simple. You just click on it and it loads it into the program. The only thing that I did is after I brought each one in individually, is I changed them to a light color, which I recommend, and then I positioned them where I wanted, and I locked it by clicking on this little padlock icon in the sequence view. That way I can't select it at all because I'm trying to trace. I don't want to accidentally select it, so that's how you go about doing that. And so let's just take a look at a few of the others. I'm going to just zoom into this one. I'm going to click on my artwork tool. And in this case, I might go straight down. I might go the opposite direction so I can do a perfectly straight line by holding down shift. But when I get to this point, if I hold down shift, notice what happens. It puts it down here because it only works with a vertical, horizontal, or like a 45-degree angle. So I can't hold down shift when I click right here. And I can't hold down shift when I click right here. But now that I'm going perfectly vertical, I can hold down shift and I can click there. So just wanted to point that out. You can't hold down shift every time. You're creating a straight line always with the line tool, but you can't do it. You can't like align them unless it's perfectly horizontal or vertical. So very easy to do. Now, if you need to get in and edit a shape, we're going to be talking about that later. So make sure you watch the editing video for that, for working with lines or creating lines. So the other thing that we can do is I can just go in and grab the running stitch tool. I'm going to change the color down here. If I grab the running stitch tool, because I'm in the line input mode, it makes it no different. I just come around and I just click on the areas, left clicking each time, and this is basically allowing me to create a run stitch around this shape. I'm going to close it, and you can see that it creates that run stitch. It's important to understand that that's how the software works. If I want to create a fill stitch, exact same thing. The only difference is when I get to the end, when I right click, I might have to put in a start point, end point, and angle lines, which you'll learn in a different video. You can see here, right click, start point, end point, and then it creates the stitches. But all you're doing is tracing it. And you're tracing it the same as you would with an artwork tool. There's no difference there. So that's just important to understand. So let's go in here and let's look at one. You can see that this one's pretty straightforward and simple. You know, honestly, when you're working with a like straight line, it's all pretty easy to do. Let's go ahead and click this artwork tool. And in this case, I can go shift and I can click right here, holding down shift, Click right there. Let's see what happens if I hit shift right here. It still goes down a little bit more because it's a little bit more in a 45-degree angle. So I can hit delete or backspace on my computer, and that takes away that point. And I can come in and now click right there. And then right here. And then I can hold down shift and I can go around the shape. And I apologize, my computer is lagging for some reason right now. Kind of frustrating. And I can go around the entire shape. I can hold down shift again to create a perfectly straight line, and I can go around it all. Very simple to do. Make sure that you practice using this this technique of creating lines. And again, I just recommend going into the custom shapes, bringing in a few of them, and you can start with straight lines. So when you're looking at these, just look at things that have perfectly straight lines. And then when the next section, we're going to talk about going around curves. So that'll be a different way to actually create it. And so you can practice with these to get good at tracing. And that's what you're doing when you're digitizing. So we'll see you in the next video.